the majority of women's clothes or undergarments were definitely created by guys because they are not.
So dumb.
Like, yeah, they're just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
They don't actually work.
No pockets. No pockets.
No, absolutely not. Why do women need pockets? Guys do.
And you
women
can't,
don't.
And you can't work in those clothes. Like,
No.
Like if I wear, women's jeans that are supposed to fit me, you can't work in that. You can't do any. You're not going to chop wood or stack. You have to wear your cards at that time.
Lindsay, you're living your best frontier life.
I am. I'm practically a homesteader. If Colby hears this, he's going to laugh because I'm definitely not a homesteader. But I do like to chop wood. That's fun.
Alright, so yes, men probably had a hand in inventing most women's undergarments except for granny panties. Welcome to the 42 Podcast, where we discuss life together, looking for answers to life, the universe, and, well, everything else. Here are your hosts, Rob and Lindsay. Hey, Lindsay. Same time this week.
It's a 42 Podcast at night again. Who knows what's going to happen?
I don't got no whiskey.
I know, me neither. I have tea.
I didn't even get a chance to make tea. Yeah, it's a 42 Podcast at night. Normally we do this Saturday mornings, and here we are Sunday night.
Yep.
Which Sunday is like my Monday, so yay.
Sunday is your Monday?
Yep, Sunday is my Monday.
'Cause you're a pastor.
I am not a pastor.
Well, you're kind of you walk in the role of pastor, whether anybody's stamped the word pastor on your forehead or not.
Nobody's coming at me with that stamp just yet, so I'm free and clear of that. But I got most of the education towards it.
Your calling comes from God. But okay.
But yes, welcome to the 42 Podcast on a Sunday night, and there's, I don't know, a bit of an irony, I guess, to Sunday evening and continuing our conversation on purity culture from last week. Yeah.
Yeah, Colby's sorry he can't make it, but he's sick and...
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's got a cold.
Ugh.
So, he's playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yes, because that will clear his sinus passages, right?
Oh, absolutely. He's running interference for me, so hopefully.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're going to have some different interruptions, probably on both ends with kids. For us tonight, but for our listeners this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whatever time you're listening. But on top of that, not only do we have interruptions, we also have a guest this evening.
We do.
We do.
A woman I have not laid eyes upon in 15 years or something?
No. We've been married 13 and a half. 13 and a half. Because you did our wedding photos.
Yes, I just saw them. I just pulled out a photo album, and I'm like, oh my gosh. The ones outside were good. I apologize for the ones inside. I have no idea what I was doing.
That's okay. That was 13 and a half years ago. But yes, my wife, Melinda, is joining us tonight.
Hello.
So if you're listening... Oh, yep. Sorry, if you're listening, my audio is a little weird this week because I'm not in a great setup just yet to have multiple people in one room. I've only got one microphone. But we'll make it work. Melinda, you're here because you have a bit of a different take on some of the purity culture than I do.
A bit, yeah.
And you have different thoughts on what it should, could, and needs to be, as well as, where we finished our conversation with last week was talking about modesty. And... I don't know, I guess that's a really good place to kind of pick back up with is modesty. What that looks like, what that is. Is there a good balance? How does that work?
Yeah.
Can I offer what is probably a weird, awkward story that might help this?
Yeah.
So, let me just start with this. Disclaimer, once again, we're talking purity and sexuality and all of that fun stuff, so listen with caution, with little ears. Maybe listen to this first and then go, okay, whatever. Make your own decisions, be careful. But anyway, disclaimer done. My little weird story. It's something that happened to me that it took me a while to kind of figure out, but it's weird and personal too, which is why I feel kind of weird sharing this. But you guys have seen like the tank top undershirts that guys will wear. I've been wearing one since I was in like 6th grade because I went to a scout camp and that was actually a requirement. You had to have undershirts. And part of that was because we were in our Class A uniform for the whole camp. And anyway. So since I was in 6th grade, I've always worn an undershirt. And we were doing this big trip a couple years back. And it was over a hot weekend with youth group. And one of the youth group mothers somehow noticed or figured out that I had an undershirt under my t-shirt and made an offhand comment about why in the world I would wear that with how much heat there is in the day, and just, it doesn't make sense. It took me like 5 years to figure out that she was considering it from her perspective of, over the hot weekend, if she didn't have to wear a bra because it was a mixed crowd, she wouldn't have. And just, yeah. So, for me as a guy wearing an extra layer of clothing, it didn't make sense to her when she wanted that freedom of not needing the extra layers. And I guess that's kind of a good spot to go of boobs.
Yeah. They're annoying as heck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate them.
Okay. But how does that tie in with modesty? I mean, there's the whole perception. I'm looking at you two because I got nothing. I don't got no boobs.
They're always causing a problem. It preoccupies my mind. That's why I wear shirts up to my trachea, whatever, because I don't want to think about my boobs. Don't want to think about it. So I don't wear anything that if I have to bend over to get something, I don't want to be thinking about that. I just want to be thinking about getting the toy off the floor, or, I don't know. I hate thinking about that stuff. I'd rather think about other things. That's also where I don't wear makeup.
So I remember in, a college I went to before the program that we met at, they even had where the RAs would have this huge meeting with all of the females explaining the appropriate type of clothing that girls should wear. How and then this was carried on into the program we all met at, where it was the 5-finger rule that you had to have, a 5-finger space from your neck to where the shirt, started or ended wherever, Yeah, I don't know. The collar of the shirt. That is not the shirt ended. But, it was ingrained at that time. And I was such a young Christian that I was like, well, of course, this makes perfect sense. It's all on me to take charge and protect those men, those poor little guys. Yes. So we have to, we have to protect them from our chests that God gave us. So...
Yeah, okay, this is the part where I think I'll just step out.
But they're tight pants. Don't worry about the tight...
Yeah.
Okay, don't get me started on the tight pants, okay? Seriously. That should be a thing, but nobody talks about that. They're just talking about boobs.
Oh, yeah. Well, at the college I had gone to, they actually had... the RAs even show how inappropriate what it was if you had the lowrider jeans on, because if you're at the altar and you're bending over, that could be a horrible hindrance to a guy who's trying to worship God. So once again, it all came back to we as females are a huge distraction between guys and God, and therefore, we were just all horrible people. So clothing was bad, but you have to wear it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for you, Lindsay, you just wear t-shirts to not think about it, to not whatever, move on. But you don't do that, and you don't follow the 5-finger rule anymore. Uh-oh, what? Oh, yeah. I'm a guy. I like boobs.
And I still try my best to follow, like, the 5-finger rule-ish, but that's just my own comfort level. It's not because, you know, I'm so afraid that, you know, I'm going to cause somebody else to stumble because of my body, but because I'm always just like, I don't want to have to constantly, you know, like, reach up when I'm bending over to, like, make sure I'm not flashing someone.
Yeah.
But now, here's the flip side question of this, because you each have a different background, is, okay, how much of this is a learned trait from your household versus how much of this is a learned trait from your faith? And I'll give a perfect example, and sorry, I'm going to throw you under the bus
I know where you're going with this, so.
One of the first dates that Melinda and I went on, oh man, I don't remember where we went, but
it was Valentine's Day.
No, it wasn't Valentine's Day. It was
okay.
It was before all of that, because we were engaged at that point. But it was an early date that she and I went on, and you shared with me that your mother had said, "Oh, you should show more cleavage."
Oh man.
There was 2 dresses. There was one that I had worn and that was like a little bit more concealing, and then there was like this really pretty green dress that I then wore on our honeymoon later that showed off a lot more than I was comfortable with at that time. And my mom was like, "Oh, you should wear the green one." I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. So I ended up wearing the one that was a little bit more concealing and, you know, covered everything a lot more. But yeah, I was surprised by my mom having said that personally.
But for you, okay, so for you, Lindsay, was the culture, that modesty culture, was that something that was brought in by family, or was that something that was learned from church? Where's that come from for you?
It doesn't come from my house. I've always been this way. Always. So, it was my sisters, would come downstairs wearing something, and my mom would be like, no. But not often. They didn't do that too often. They just sort of basically, for the most part, they got away with a lot of clothes. But they weren't weird either. Like, they're pretty modest too, sort of. But I'm gonna get in trouble. But honestly, okay, this is weird, but I've noticed in the 10 years of married life that when I do dress up, wear a dress that's lower cut, wear the shoes and the earrings and the makeup and the hair, it changes my personality. Mm-hmm. It changes me. It makes me feel, this is weird, it doesn't make me feel powerful. It makes me feel like a damsel. Like, and I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. And instead of Colby and I being like hardcore friends first, it sort of switches around to where it's like leading with just that, and I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. Which is probably too bad for him. But maybe, like, I've struggled with my weight also for a long time, and maybe when I feel better about myself, maybe that will change. But those are my thoughts.
See, it's interesting because I'm the opposite. I feel empowered when I'm wearing my makeup and I have my hair done and I wear, you know, a nice outfit. High heels, not so much because my feet hurt, but like I feel empowered and ready to go when I am dressed like that. Now, the only people that have ever seen me really without like my makeup done or without my hair done or anything, really is those closest to me. So Rob and, obviously the kids because they live here. But even when I'm horribly sick and I've had to go to the doctor's office, our doctor takes a picture of you as check-in and everything, so that way they can verify that it's you. And I had the doctor tell me after he saw my picture, he's like, wow, you're really photogenic because even though you're horribly sick, you look really good today. In which I laughed and I was like, yeah, I put all my makeup on just to come here. So but again, like, I feel vulnerable and like I'm a damsel in distress kind of thing, essentially, when I'm not dressed up.
That's really interesting.
But that also, once again, plays into my insecurities, so, yeah.
Right, and it plays into mine, so.
Yep.
So the end result of this is that modesty is a bit of a moving target based on the individual, the background, and the perceptions that they interact with the world, and whether or not they feel that, well, boobs are empowering or hindering. Makeup is empowering or hindering. Heels is empowering or hindering.
Yeah.
Is that a good summary?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we solved the world's problem. Great. Anything else, or are you just staring awkwardly?
No, I was just thinking about sports bras and how I hate the cups are removable. And the person who invented that was definitely a man, because they move around in your bra all the time and fold up, and you gotta like reach into your bra and like fix it or go find it in the dryer. And then the cups like wear out first, so then you're like, do I buy a new bra just because the stupid piece fell out?
I think the majority of women's clothes or undergarments were definitely created by guys because they are not.
So dumb.
Like, yeah, they're just stupid. They don't actually work.
No pockets. No
Yeah.
pockets.
No, absolutely not. Why do women need pockets? Guys do.
And you
but women
can't,
don't.
and you can't work in those clothes. Like,
No.
if I wear, women's jeans that they're supposed to fit me, you can't work in that. You can't
No.
do any. You're not going to chop wood or stack. You have to wear your cards at that time.
Lindsay, you're living your best frontier life.
I am. I'm practically a homesteader. If Colby hears this, he's going to laugh because I'm definitely not a homesteader. But I do like to chop wood. That's fine.
Alright, so yes, men probably had a hand in inventing most women's undergarments except for granny panties.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But no, I was telling Rob recently that it's always been a frustration to me that, as women, we're told that essentially we are the problem in a guy's life. And guys are essentially these weak little objects that we need to, protect and essentially baby. But the moment we get married, then all of a sudden, like, roles switch and, like, we are the damsels in distress and they're like,
good.
So,
Yeah.
and then we wonder why there's so many issues within a marriage, especially within Christianity and stuff like that, because it's, well, they start off in this relationship where it's, oh no, we have to protect you. We have to make sure we're wearing appropriate clothing because we could hurt you, but by, our clothing choices. But then once we're married, it's, let's go, let's get it on.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, like, does it seem that in relationships, especially Christian ones, the woman essentially sets the bar as far as how intimate is too intimate, and if the woman changes her mind at all, it's just like, okay. Like, instead of like what we're talking about modesty, the man taking responsibility for his own eyeballs and all the other ones and setting some standards for himself and not moving. And but isn't that taught, like, when you're a boy? When you're a little boy, you should be practicing little baby steps on that. Like, you need to know who you are now. And it doesn't matter what's happening around you. Those rules are going to stay the same. You set standards now and you don't change. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. Because I don't know how else to teach that to a man or boy. Oh, I do know. Guess what? guess what? Part of it is no doesn't always mean no. Is that the girlfriend or whatever will say, no, I don't really want to do that. But doesn't really know. And I think he senses that and sort of swoops in. But I think as a boy, no should mean no, no matter what. Even if she's not sure. Even if she's kidding. Nope, not doing it.
Exactly, because if she's kidding, then she's going to change her attitude when he's like, okay, definitely not then.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Nope, we don't joke with no, we don't joke with...
No is truthfully no, yeah.
Yeah. And also... Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry, part of what I'm chewing on is the perception of almost a power dynamic where women are expected to be the guardians of.
Ooh, that's good.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
The Nebula.
Well, that just changed that whole movie. Welcome to the 42 podcast, where we take normal names and, make them a little bit on the creepy side.
We're just gonna sip our tea nonchalantly now.
Yeah. I'd like to point out that I'm not the one doing this, giving weird names.
But go back to the Guardians thing, sorry.
But, yeah. No, I mean, there's a cultural perception that women are the guardians of that purity, of that chastity, and it's expected. We even have it somewhat culturally of, well, boys will be boys.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a perception that, especially within purity culture, that, well, boys will be boys, and they're the ones who are going to break, but they'll be okay. But you precious desert flower, be a guardian.
You're stuck
build your
with his
wall
mistakes.
and say no. Right.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, it's a very one-sided view of intimacy and sexuality that gives no responsibility to one party and all responsibility to another. And that is something that we have kind of circled around a couple times in this conversation is the responsibility that young men and men don't seem to be owning, and the responsibility and expectation that is put on women.
So the past, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we were talking about stereotypes with a group of middle schoolers. And one of the 7th graders, he had said that, there's a stereotype that boys will be boys, but girls, they have to be the responsible ones. They have to be mature. And he caught on to that in 7th grade and was saying how he always was bothered by that fact, because he's like, that has to put a lot of pressure on girls to always be the mature ones. Which I was blown away, because I was like, holy cow, this is a 7th grade boy who just said that.
Interesting.
Now, let me toss this one out to kind of, I guess, get both of your reactions in this. In our Western American culture, there is sexualization in advertisements. It happens, and it's everywhere. But when you go to, say, somewhere like Europe, it's different, and you'll see topless advertisements. And Lindsay, you just made a face there, but I mean, what does that...
It disgusts me.
Why? Why does that disgust you? I mean,
Well, we went to an arcade. We went to a bowling alley arcade place, and it was super fun. The kids had fun, but in the arcade, there was like racing games and motorcycle games and stuff. And this huge, 4-foot tall woman who's hardly in a swimsuit, and she's posing really suggestively, and my 9-year-old kid's seeing that, and it just seems so hypocritical of society to, on the one hand, talk about liberating women and empowering women, and on the other hand, like, really, do you need that to sell? And yeah, I guess they do need that to sell. Mm-hmm. So it's so hypocritical, and it's disgusting. Mm-hmm. But that's why also, like, contrastingly, when shows and movies come out, like, I know I'm dating myself, but the Gilmore Girls, or Alias. I know, this is really old stuff, but shows where, you know what, they're dressed the whole time.
Yeah, the entire time.
And they speak well, and they're smart, and it's still, the society is such that when you see a strong female character who keeps her clothes on, it's like, oh, cool, finally.
Mm-hmm. But so the example you threw out was Gilmore Girls, and when we got married, someone made me watch all seasons of Gilmore Girls, and I would sit there and I would pick at the show of, well, okay, you like this because it's not racy or flashy, but I mean, look at the lifestyle choices that they're making that are without physically sending that same message or sending the emotional equivalent to it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the difference is that they seem to be in control, I guess, and it wasn't so... I mean, I honestly stopped watching after the third season because I couldn't... I didn't... The writers changed, and I did not like it after that, but...
She made me watch all of them, even the last one that came out, 2 or 3 years ago?
It was a little bit longer than that, but yes, I was depressed and upset with that one. I screamed at the end. Not a fan of that one.
There are shows and movies. Oh my gosh, Christmas is coming. Forgive me for saying that, but Christmas is coming, and the Hallmark Channel is gearing up for their sappy, emotional portrayals of perfectionism that nothing against people who watch them, but I mean, how much of that is not, again, selling that same aspect, but packaged in the emotional cover that appeals to women?
I don't know if we're talking about the same thing here now.
Yes, and that sex sells. It's just the packaging, I suppose, is what I'm getting at.
Whereas for guys, the packaging is...
It's cheap, flashy, and yay, boobs.
Yeah, and for women, it would be the storyline of it that you would find in Hallmark.
The emotional connection into the drama, into the will they, won't they, the tension.
I think there is a difference, though, between the two. But I understand what you're getting at, though.
Yeah.
I'm just spitballing at this point. I mean, it's a question of the idea that sex sells, I guess. And I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into things or trying to justify. I don't know. Whatever. All right, Lindsay, you're processing or you're bored?
No, I'm trying to see if I agree or not. Yeah, because they gotta sell stuff somehow. And they're appealing to very basic needs. Very basic. They appeal to hunger, they appeal to thirst, they appeal to sex to sell food and everything else. But it affects us. It affects our kids because this crazy idea of what a woman is supposed to look like is what's in front of their face all the time. Or that, hey, guys who like motorcycles also like these kind of girls. Mm-hmm. Or this girl would like, this is exactly what she wants to be doing right now. I don't know. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, no. Boy, if you want a fun challenge, and this can go for anyone, if you're listening and you want to do something really interesting, next time you're watching a football game or a movie or anything broadcast on TV, when the commercials come on, hit mute and try and guess what they're selling.
Yeah, I can't. Commercials are so stupid.
Yeah.
Like the ones that sell Coke. The ones that sell Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Like, what does this have to do with Coca-Cola?
Hey, you're about to start knocking
family.
my favorite. You're knocking my favorite Christmas commercials.
I was gonna say. Well, and let's face it, I do not like Budweiser, but however, their commercials with
Bud. Why?
Well, no, okay. Then who's the one that does the horses?
Budweiser.
Yeah, Budweiser. That's what I was thinking.
Budweiser did. Yeah. They did the frogs. Budweiser.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then they did the horse. They do the horses, but they also did weather.
Yeah. But the horses, though, are by far one of my favorite commercials, and it's for a beer, but that I would never drink because I don't like beer or Budweiser. So,
Especially Budweiser.
yeah.
Weather! Sorry, I'm done. And I have that stuck in my head. I gotta go watch 2000 era Budweiser commercials. Oh my gosh. Yes, there are better beers than Budweiser. We've got a brewery not too far from us called Trogs that makes some really good stuff. You ever come down this way, we'll have to take you over there.
Yeah, we definitely like that. I love visiting breweries.
It's I will say the
I like
downside.
the sample bar.
Oh yeah.
You know, where you get to try all the different samples and
The downside is you are within nose distance of Hershey.
Oh.
So chocolate, lots of chocolate smell. And you can hear the roller coasters in Hershey Park just, like 3 blocks away. But anyway, that aside. I guess kind of moving into the last chunk of all of this is reconciling culture, which has these elements that are empowering but not empowering and perspective-based. How do we walk into that with purity culture in the church? Where do we even begin to address sexuality and healthy sexuality as a church? And I'm asking as a church because vested interest, it's where I'm at. Even applying it to the question of kids. I mean, we've got an 11 and a 9-year-old. You've got, 9, 7. You've got 4 of them.
7, 4, and 2.
8, 6, 7, 5, 3, 0. Oh, wait.
Okay. So, when you're teaching how to be a leader, one of the things that you teach is when you're responsible for something, like my son has a pocket knife, and if he lets his sister borrow the knife and she leaves it outside, or, does something she's not supposed to do with it, he's still responsible because it's his knife and he probably shouldn't have let her have it. And I like that principle because it makes you responsible for your things, for your actions, even if you're not the one who directly did the thing. When you're in a relationship, you have to take responsibility for your purity and the other person's purity.
Culturally, we've set it up, though, that, again, even outside of the church, it's the woman who is that guardian of. Most times men aren't the ones saying no. It's culturally the woman. Culturally is not
true.
the right way to say that.
The idea is the language is he won her heart. He earned it. He bought her. It's this language of conquest. So the guy has this attitude of conquest, but at the same time he has to it's like the Oracle. We're recording way too late at night.
Without anything to drink. Do you have any thoughts?
Oh, I have plenty.
Well, the microphone's on.
Okay. So for me, I think you both are onto something here. I think language needs to get changed. And that's just in life, whether you're a Christian, a non-Christian, whatever. I think we need to get rid of the stereotypes, change our language around. Instead of saying that, he pursued her, she is the goal, the whatever. Instead of saying that, it's, again, both of the people, as you both have said, they need to take ownership for themselves, respect themselves first and foremost, before you pursue anything further. But then also, I think in general, we need to go a step further. And even if, say, something happens before marriage or whatever else, we need to bring in that redemptive element, because that redemptive element is 90% is often overlooked or pushed away. So yeah, I think if we take the pressure away, so to speak, of how having like this squeaky clean, perfect, beautiful marriage, you know, knowing that, yeah, sex is great, okay, but it's going to be even better when you get married, because what happens between now and then could be you end up broken up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whomever. You know, all of these things start to happen. And then before long, chances are, you know, and sometimes people do end up with their high school sweethearts or their junior high sweethearts. You never know. But that's the thing. You never know until you are married who you're going to end up with. And I feel like if we just simply, I don't know. I just lost my train of thought.
What I'm getting from all of this is there needs to be almost a codification of where the boundaries are, what is okay, what are the roles and responsibilities of each. But part of the problem that I think happens with this is it also lends itself to being abused. That it lends itself to marginalizing a section of the population because they haven't fallen into that codification, or ultra codifying and using it as a means of control, or creating taboos that only, instead of helping to understand, only make it more desirable to go outside of the norm and into that taboo.
Yeah, because even, like, as a female, Lindsay, you had said earlier that, you know, with the whole no meaning no thing, you know, sometimes girls say no and they're just teasing or whatever. But if we start training even our girls that no means no, and that starts with you know.
Hang on, kid alert.
Hello there. I'm interrupting this podcast, not to tell you anything per se, but to thank you for listening to the 42 podcast and being a part of the experience. Here at the 42, Rob and I love to hear from our listeners and are always excited to hear suggestions, feedback, and comments. If you want to participate, there are a few ways you can do so. You can support us by rating and reviewing the show, and of course recommending us to your friends, family, bank teller, car mechanic, whomever. Do you have something in particular that you'd like us to discuss? Or maybe you'd like to actually be on the show to discuss a particular thing, or set us straight about something we got wrong or didn't fully suss out to your satisfaction. You can email us at badtheologyproductions@gmail.com. I really appreciate your taking the time to include us in your busy day.
If we train even, you know, if we teach even our girls that no means no, and then follow that up with our boys as well, saying, you know, listen, if a girl does say no, this is what it means no matter what. Again, each of them taking, my brain just shut off.
Taking responsibility.
Yeah, taking responsibility for the situation. It'll help, and then that way it takes away from the lightheartedness, so to speak, of what no could mean in that girl, because it's going to reinforce in her mind as well that, oh wait, I did say no, and so he respects me because he actually listened, instead of, oh well, maybe if I, you know, do this, she'll say yes, because clearly she's just teasing me, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And what's the point of it? Why do you think God cares?
So I look at God as, you know, he's my father. He is my protector, my healer, but, you know, he cares for me and loves me like a father would. So, you know, just like our dads, they care for us and they don't want to see us hurt. They don't want to see us heartbroken. They don't want to see us in pain. And so because of that, God cares even in this intimate detail of our lives, so to speak, that he cares because he doesn't want to see us heartbroken. He doesn't want to see us hurting more than, well, we already are.
I think it comes down to, you know, Genesis 1:28, that first blessing, be fruitful and multiply, but also the curse that happens after in Genesis 3, the man will leave his family for the desire of his wife. And I'm badly quoting all of that. My scripture's out of reach at the moment. But the idea that is in Scripture of two become one flesh. This isn't just a casual thing. This is the knitting of two people, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, together. And it's good. It's meant to be good. It's meant to be celebrated and rejoiced over. I mean, God didn't make us in the garden fully clothed and, go off behind the bushes and get busy with it. We were naked. And it was meant to be, well, really on display, but celebrated because of the unity of two being one. And I think that's why, because he gave us this incredibly powerful and intimate tool of connection that is meant to draw two people together. But if it draws two people together, it can also hurt them when they come apart. I mean, that's one of the side effects that I have of my job in supporting the church is helping with funerals when needed. And there have been funerals where I'm in the back helping with the soundboard or whatever is needed, and I want to cry because the connection that is there that you're seeing between a spouse who has lost their spouse, but also this deep root of hope. And part of that is the intimacy that they shared over their lifespans together. And, for them, it is missing a huge chunk of who they have been. And that goes beyond the physical intimacy. I mean, that goes to the aging together. That goes to the having built a family, experienced life together in a way that, Lindsay, you and I are running this podcast and we're sharing pieces of our lives together, but the intimacy that is the life together that is between Melinda and I is very different, because what we're building here is, it's kids, it's legacy, it's, my children are a greater legacy than probably anything the 42 podcast will do, and, we want this to do some amazing things, but that legacy, that life together has its roots in our marriage. That foundation, that relationship started before the marriage, grew into our marriage and our physical intimacy, which has now brought two children into the world. And I guess that's where I kind of look at it, where it's that deep setting of life together and foundational generations. I guess maybe that's a spot to even stop and pause with that of, the purity culture of the church is great, but the place to really do and own and grow with it is in the home settings.
Yeah, and I mean, in the Bible, your relationship with your spouse is supposed to be a reflection of the relationship between God and the church. And what are you laughing at? You're not the first pastor to laugh at me about this sort of thing.
I'm laughing because you missed the lesson I did for youth group tonight.
Oh.
We're doing the minor prophets in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And tonight was Hosea.
Yeah.
Hosea chapter 1. Hey, Hosea, that woman's a prostitute. Go marry her. So it was just the ironic timing of, it's a reflection of, yes.
I don't get why that's funny, but yes, it is a common, it happens over and over again in the Bible, like in Ezekiel 16 too, which is probably one of my, I don't know why I really like that passage where it talks about that too, where God is after a lover, someone, in Isaiah 55 it says, for your maker is your husband. And so there's definitely that woven throughout the scriptures, and in Revelation it talks about the bride and the groom and things, and so.
Well, and Matthew and Paul's epistles, it is there because it is the closest understanding of what we can have. And, again, going into what I said with Hosea, it was God using that moment for the people of Israel to understand, you are like a bride to me who's gone astray, but I'll continue to pursue you and redeem you. And that's the end point that we came to in youth group is that discussion, but it's, yeah. Sorry, I monologued for a while. You got anything? I do this occasionally.
I'm still stuck on the part where you said that something about purity culture and the church being good or something like that, personally, and I started chuckling, and I kind of trailed off at that point.
That doesn't sound like something I would say.
You kind of did.
I kind of did? Did I say that?
It was something similar to that. I don't know.
I think purity culture needs to start with the family, and the church needs to enable us to discuss sex and sexuality more than we do. And you want to see church ladies run, tell them what you're teaching in youth group in February. Sorry.
Sorry, I have a minor issue at times with churches and purity culture. But yeah.
I will say that I struggle a little with this piece because when you're reading the epistles, it does sort of seem like women are the recipients, the receivers, the ones to be careful of and, to be blamed for things. I mean, even, there's some kind of icky stuff in the New Testament about women. Like, what the heck are you saying?
There are some cultural contexts that are missing in our understanding of what, and Paul's the biggest offender of this, in what he's writing, intending, and wants. And some of those cultural contexts are things like, I can't remember the example given, but Matt Whitman from 10 Minute Bible Hour did a video on this where, I won't say it was the Corinthians, and it was one of the issues where Paul was saying, women need to be in worship with their heads covered. And the historical and cultural context of that was, according to Matt and the research and study he did, I would need to do more to say absolutely, so I'm trusting Matt Whitman, was that the temple prostitutes of whatever Greek or Roman god were there had converted to Christianity, and part of the sign of being a temple prostitute was you shaved your head.
No way. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so this whole little blurb in there with what Paul's writing to is to equalize the playing field and say, look, everyone's equal in Christ. The women who are part of the church should also cover their heads as much as the temple prostitute, because, you might have that guy who kind of visited those temple prostitutes, but still goes to church on Sunday and, hey, I know her kind of thing. And so
that would be icky.
Yeah. So the design, and as I understand it, and intention of that passage was, okay, if we have women cover their heads, you're not going to know and be like, hey, I know you.
Or be ashamed.
Right.
And I hope she doesn't see me.
Right. So it was intended to level that playing field, because the side that's always missed is at the end of Paul's epistles, how often does he go and refer to Lydia and... Oh my gosh, Lydia, and I'm blanking on who the other one is.
Chloe.
Yeah, whoever it is. But how often does he refer to and say, these women are important to me. They are a piece of the foundation of the ministry and mission that I am doing. So Paul is very easy to lose context on, because we're missing the cultural element that was happening in that church at the time. And Paul's letters are writing to churches in the time and in the place.
Okay, but what about that yucky one from Timothy? Do you know what I'm talking about? Women will be saved by childbearing. How do you get around that one? Because that's disgusting.
Whew.
That's gross.
Uh-huh.
Without researching and reading up on it again, because I've had this discussion. I do remember us arguing about this in seminary, and that was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I'd have to go back and find my notes. But there's a cultural context that I've got to believe is there. I know it's there. I just don't have it off the top of my head. But there is an aspect of family structure that is desired in the church, but, I think the best footing and positioning is to find grace. I think I've mentioned that I work for a female pastor, and she is incredible. She's one of the best pastors I've ever worked for, and I appreciate and value her perspective, her wisdom, and her grace. And I don't see anything of her being a female as a hindrance to the ministry that she has and the foundation of the church work she is doing. I am thankful for her because I know I've grown more and I've learned more because of her, and because, Melinda is then at home reinforcing some of these things. I think I said that in the last episode where, still boneheaded guy, but by the grace of others, I'm learning, I'm growing.
More research is needed.
It's probably fair to say of this topic all the time. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Just one other thing, I guess. Being that back to the point that we had made earlier about what we could do for our children, even, it goes beyond just learning how to say no and learning how to accept that no means no. And it goes beyond even just being respectful and understanding your own self-esteem and stuff like that. But I think as parents, we also need to take it a step further and teach our kiddos about forgiveness as well, and the redemption aspect, because so often we are so fixated on everything that happens before sex, okay? So we're so focused as parents on making sure that our kids, they have the self-esteem and self-confidence to cover their bodies and to respect their bodies. We're focused on teaching our boys that no means no, or our girls that, how to say no and how to stand up for themselves, that we then forget about the whole redemption aspect in all of this. And that's where I always struggle with a lot of the whole purity culture movements and what Christians teach, even because they often overlook that main element where if anybody does have this happen, we'll just skip over the whole God's there to forgive you kind of thing, because we don't want people to think that, he's just going to constantly forgive you and forgive you and forgive you every time. So therefore we just need to teach our kids only that no means no. So that's where I always get stuck at, and making sure that we talk as parents to our kiddos about the redemption element too.
And really, sin is sin. It's all sin. And we make it a big deal because there are really big consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are really, really big consequences, but there are big consequences to drinking and driving too.
Exactly.
And honestly, I'd rather the former than the latter. Yeah. Because you won't die.
Yeah.
You won't die having sex most of the time. It's happened sometimes, but I think
there was a couple in Japan who had it as such a taboo that when they finally slept with each other as a married couple, they both got so excited their hearts gave out and they both died.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well,
that's it. That's what we need to focus on. Sex, kids, can lead to death, so don't do it until you're married.
I think taking virginity off the pedestal, maybe, not making it such a big deal. Mm-hmm. Like, you're a flower. Let's not make it a big deal. I don't know. How do you make it not a big deal, but still, you really need to wait until you know who you want to be with forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it only gets better from there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's good. It's cool. Yay, you're a virgin. Super. But if you're not a virgin, God is still God, and it's the same blood applied, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm so scared of having a teenager because I have no idea how to proceed. I don't know. I'm gonna screw it up.
No. I will say this. Youth ministry, I faced down plenty of teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Our son is going to be 12 in just a couple months. And looking at him turning 13, I think this is the first teenager I might blink with, and I'm not sure I can stare down, but, yeah. All you can do is try. Do your best. Alright. Anything else?
No.
Nope.
Alright. Well, this has been the 42 After Dark, coming at you in the morning. Maybe the morning. Whatever. So, we're going to go to bed now. Actually, we're going to put our kids to bed now. But good talking to you, Lindsay.
All right. You too.
Yep. See ya.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the 42 podcast. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, and if you want to join in on the conversation, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter to add your voice to the conversation. Thank you.